Hello, everybody, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about the AWS Global Infrastructure. Let's go ahead and get started. So the AWS Global Infrastructure is a consistency of regions and availability zones. As of June 2019, there are currently 21 regions and 66 availability zones. As you can see here on the map, this was pulled directly from Amazon's website and shows a map of the regions and availability zones. The blue circles are the current regions that already exist in the Amazon infrastructure network, and the orange ones are the ones that will be coming soon. These are regions that are coming soon. Amazon is constantly improving their network and adding more servers and more regions and availability zones for their users to access in order to add redundancy, reliability, and ultimately more benefits for us, because the more servers, the more capacity, and the more customers that can use the Amazon network. So I want to take a moment and kind of deep dive into exactly what an availability zone is and what a region is. So this is going to be important for the exam. Please take notes. An availability zone, which I hyphen as AZ, is essentially a data center. Think of it as a building with a long room full of servers, or several long room full of servers that do individual things. These servers can do computing, they can do storage, they can do databasing. It all depends on what the room or what the server was intended to do. And you have a full-fledged team of people who are managing those resources for you. And these are the same resources that are going to be accessible in the AWS console, which you will get to dabble in later on in this course. But here's a picture of a data center. And you can see it's a tall building here. A lot of data centers are long, wide buildings with fire stations on premise. There are fuel tanks for the generators in case the electricity of the city goes out. Like, there is just a lot of thought and a lot of scaling that was put into this. And as you can see, a lot of money. AZs are buildings full of servers and storage arrays and networking hardware. So they take care of everything for you. And an AZ actually may have several data centers like the one in this picture, but they still only count as one AZ in the Amazon network. So a region is a geographical area that consists of two or more availability zones. And we'll get a chance to take a look at the regions that are available to you depending on your geographical location in just a moment. The other thing that I wanted to touch on before we jump into the Amazon's website is what an edge location is. So before we didn't really talk about it, but another big component of the networking and the infrastructure of Amazon is the ability to deliver the information and the applications that you're hosting in Amazon's network anywhere in the world. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have a full-fledged data center like the one pictured before. Sometimes it just means that you need to have a smaller building with servers that are caching the content that is being hosted from the data centers. So you may have a data center that's running all the computes, that is hosting all the databases and all the storage, but you just need to be able to speed up the delivery to certain areas of the world. Currently, in Amazon's network, there is over 150 edge locations, and there are more edge locations than regions. There are more edge locations than availability zones, so it's just something to keep in mind. If you're familiar with what a CDN is, CloudFront is Amazon's CDN, and we'll be able to dabble into that a little bit more when we start talking about the Amazon networking portion of the services. So I wanted to take a moment to show you where on Amazon's website you can actually learn more about the global infrastructure, the regions, the availability zones across the world. As you can see here, this is the North America regions down here shows in the orange circle the different locations where the regions are, and the edge locations are the blue circle. So you can see there are several, and they kind of go into specifics. They say US East Ohio region, US East North Virginia, and it goes into specifics saying there are 3 availability zones in Ohio, 6 availability zones in North Virginia, and then if you go to Oregon, there are 4. In Northern California, there are 3. And then you have GovCloud and you have Canada. So the government cloud is a cloud region that is specific to the US government. So basically, AWS has created a fully compliant region meant for government entities such as local government, federal government, state government. And the employees that work there are fully vetted. They are accredited. They've been background checked extensively, just like you would be, probably even more so than you would be if you were working for the federal government as a systems engineer or a security engineer or what have you. So they are trusted, and you can check out the accreditation to the government cloud. If you just Google AWS GovCloud, you'll be able to see a little bit more information on how the GovCloud works and the type of security controls placed into it. I recommend looking into that because the AWS is very transparent, and so they will make sure to share with you just exactly how they went about implementing those controls. Okay, moving on. Here are the AWS edge locations listed for the United States region and the Canada region. And as I said before, there are 150 different edge locations across the world. And those are the ones only listed in the United States. Obviously not listed on the map. There are probably too many to show, but that just goes to show you that your data is going to be available to you anywhere because it is caching it everywhere. So regardless of your location, if you are trying to get access to your data, it'll be fast and it'll be efficient. So I want to take a moment and take a look at the South America, the Europe, and the Asia. So South America is one that is still heavily under development. They have 1 region and they have 2 edge locations, and that region is in Sao Paulo. Within Europe, we have 5 regions, 1 in Ireland, 1 in London, Stockholm, Paris, and Frankfurt. And you can see how many availability zones are in each right here. As far as edge locations, they did a pretty good job at covering the area there, the geographical area. And to learn more about the network, you can just check out the links here. By the way, I have linked this page in the resources section of this video. So if you want to learn more about the global infrastructure, please be sure to take a look at that. Moving on to the Asia Pacific area. So we have several regions here. They're a little bit more developed. So we have the Asia Pacific and Singapore. We have mainland China and Beijing, Asia Pacific and Sydney, Asia Pacific Tokyo, Asia Pacific and Seoul, mainland China, Asia Pacific Osaka, and Mumbai and Hong Kong, with multiple availability zones in each, with the exception of Osaka. So yeah, as you can see, AWS has done a very good job at covering the world, and they are continuing to improve. So every year they add several more regions, several more edge locations and availability zones, which ultimately adds better service for us as the customers. So to wrap this lecture up, I wanted to go over a quick summary. In today's lecture, we covered the AWS Global Infrastructure, which consists of availability zones and regions and edge locations. An availability zone is considered a data center and sometimes considered multiple data centers. Just remember that if you have multiple data centers, it is still considered one availability zone, and you'll have multiple availability zones more than likely within your geographical region. A region is consisting of 2 or more availability zones, and there are several, and they're constantly developing more every year. And there are tons of edge locations, which act as endpoints for AWS and for their customers, which are basically caching the content that are hosted within the availability zones. The edge location, which is Amazon's content delivery network, is actually consisting of CloudFront, and we will get to learn more about that when we reach the networking portion of this course. All right, that about wraps this up, guys. I will see you in the next lecture.